At the time, I was dating 5 different girls who lived within a 30-mile radius of one another. And women, you girls, like seriously, saying things that you don't mean all the time, expecting guys to read that.
We want both.
But notice how when you first validate, wow, that must be really uncomfortable for you, especially when you look that beautiful.
Oh.
Now.
Here's our manipulator right here.
I can see it.
And now it hits, right? Okay.
Is that what you were doing when you were dating 5 women? You were
not at all. This is very controversial. I'm really happy to go on record saying this. There are a lot of therapists out there, because they don't give advice, I think they're ripping people off. The client is the expert on themselves. It's like, if they were the expert on themselves, then why are they coming to see me? My wife's an ex-IDF soldier. The reason why I'm loyal to my wife and literally no other woman is because it's not about loving her.
She will kill you if not.
She will. My boy Alnev on here. And
we did.
He's so cool. I love that kid. He's awesome. Alnev.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, it was a great
guy.
interview.
So,
He's an artiste.
Yeah.
as they say.
I love him. I go to the Soul House by Rabbi Eli.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's my scene.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
that's who I hang out with. But yeah,
That's awesome.
it's
So you're
good stuff.
often in Crown Heights?
You know, here's the thing. Ellie actually brings me frequently. Like I spoke here on Tisha B'Av and did a class. It's called The 9 Paths to Depression and How to Overcome Them, which was lots of fun. But yeah, so I mean, I come to Crown Heights these days, usually around once or twice a month or 2-ish. So this year, thank God it's picking up, but it's a good thing to be a part of. I love this community. it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So if I had $2 million, I would totally buy a house here.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. I mean, me too.
Yeah, right.
Like,
that's the thing.
Settle down.
Where do you live?
Right now, I live in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So it's nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's not Brooklyn. And I also live in like a very like Misnagdish community. It's all like yeshivish. I'm the only guy who walks around in a kippah on Shabbos. There's a Vishnitz guy who's insane. But he and I are like the only two. So it's wild, but yeah, slowly but surely, I'm converting everyone, which is a blast.
Teaching them some Tanya.
And teaching a little Tanya.
Nice.
Literally easier than finding the money.
Infiltrating,
Yeah, there you go.
Manipulating them with your psychotherapist. His thing is starting. Everything's going.
Everything is good. Yeah.
All right. So welcome back, everybody. We have Hard Charlie here.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh boy. So here's the famous intro. I use this. That's the thing. When you become a dad, you just say the same corny jokes again and again. So yeah, I'm a clinical psychotherapist. I specialize in addictions and romantic relationships. But in order to ensure my mom is proud of me, I'm also a professional rapper. And
which is exactly what you messaged me on
literally,
Instagram.
This is that. But see, it works.
Yeah.
Okay, it did work. So I mean,
we got you on.
So but no, that's literally me. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. 2 interesting identities to bring to the table and find a way to smush them together.
Do you use specifically your expertise in like relationships and addictions to rap about? Is that what you use?
And I mean, here's the thing. It's actually really interesting. You know, rap music, if you think about it, it is the only form of music that genuinely requires no talent whatsoever to create. Now,
does it really not?
Like, it literally doesn't require any talent. I could teach you both how to rap like right now. I need like a half hour.
You're saying the actual rapping or the lyrics? Actually
rapping and writing lyrics and actually becoming a rapper, anyone could do.
Okay.
Which is why we have people like Lil Pump in this world. Gooch gang, Gooch gang, Gooch gang. Okay, I can't exactly say that that's the best stuff, but I could also tell you what's cool about rap is that it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah. So
you don't need any musical background whatsoever in order to be a good rapper. And that's actually really cool because it's accessible. You know, anyone could do this. And I kind of like rap music as a medium because if you think about it lyrically, there are actually more lyrics in raps than any other type of music.
Yeah.
And if you haven't noticed, I really like the sound of my own voice. And so you could be very, very, very expressive in rap if you choose to use it correctly. So, I mean, I think it's great. And, was
it something you always liked growing up, rap music?
That's a really interesting question. When I was growing up, I was kind of a disaster. I had very low self-esteem. And then I found girls and I really liked girls because they made me feel better about myself. And so, more than anything, what rap was a way for me to vent. And music in general, I play sports. You see me, I'm not very tall. I'm like 5'5" on a good day. So, I tried playing sports. Basketball was terrible. Every time I went out on the court, I would get disqualified because I would take a step ladder with me. Apparently, you're not allowed to do that.
No.
So my
just
mom
do
was
it. You're like shooting dunks all the time.
Exactly
you're
right.
Like,
just
wow,
like jumping
amazing.
off the top of the step ladder. You can't go wrong. And then if someone steals the ball from me, I threaten to kill them with it. It's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah, right. That's the way to go.
God, you're fun to play with.
Basketball sounds fun.
Yeah, right. Definitely ups the odds. But the thing is that my mom got me into music, and so my sister started playing the glockenspiel, which is clearly an instrument that every Jewish girl needs to play. The glockenspiel is like a big xylophone.
Okay.
So my sister was playing that, and her teacher had a big drum set behind the glockenspiel. And so I was like, I'll play that, please. And so I started playing, and my first song that I ever played on the drums was Spice Girls. It was Wannabe by the Spice Girls. It was a great, big moment for me. And after that, like playing the drums gave me rhythm and taught me ultimately how to rap. But it's interesting. So, I mean, I needed rap music to kind of vent, because I was constantly getting in trouble when I was a kid. My self-esteem was non-existent. And rap music was just a thing that I could do that was easily accessible and, just made things happen.
And you put it out there like right away when you started?
So this is an interesting thing.
Okay.
My high school, it's Adlai E. Stevenson High School, is an enormous high school. We're talking 5,000 kids go there. It's like a small college, basically.
Yeah.
And because of how large it was, they also had really like loads of resources. So one of the things that was really cool is there was this thing, they called it the Wit CD. So they had a school newspaper called The Wit. So they also had the Wit CD, and I was part of this club where basically all the garage bands and all the artists in the school would submit their work. And then I was part of the team to select who gets on the CD and who doesn't. And so I was like, well, if everyone else is going to be, like, might as well put myself. Yeah. And so I started writing music. But yeah, I mean, it was cool because the first time I ever recorded my voice it wasn't me. They hired an engineer to professionally record all of the bands and everyone who had submitted work. And it's really cool because like they bring in a person and all these students were able to kind of put their work out there. And then this CD was mass reproduced, and every single person who bought a yearbook also got a copy of the CD. So it was really cool because like when I was 15, like everyone knew me as like the little Jewish kid who rapped.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even that religious at the time, but like, still it was there. Yeah. But it was really cool. But no, that's definitely it.
Do you think part of like you mentioned your self-esteem, was there a part of it like being different in your school? Because I'm assuming that you were surrounded by a lot of non-Jewish people.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. I used to work in a conservative shul.
Okay.
Which I grew up like Reform conservative, something like that. And ultimately, I don't know. I mean, I always had this like connection to Judaism of some sort, but it was really more of a career. It was like I worked there, so it was money.
Yeah.
It didn't really make sense to me on a like personal spiritual level. I don't think I understood what spirituality was until I was much older. But there was something, I knew I was different nevertheless. I knew that because I was a Jew, I was different than a lot of other people. And there's just like, I don't know, when you grow up like that, when you meet other Jews, you just kind of like, you get it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
That's kind of what it was.
But you weren't listening to like Lil Wayne and Drake and all those artists.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to all of it.
Okay. Really, so you were a fan of rap.
Yeah. Like Eminem, I really like even to this day. DMX was dope. Drake. Just all the like mainstream rappers, and that's kind of what fueled the fire into the music world.
Do you know who Ben Shapiro is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
do you know how he like says that rap isn't like real music?
Well, and I mean that's the thing. It's kind of not.
You kind of like agree with him.
Yeah, I mean that's why I say it doesn't really. You don't have to have musical talent, and even when you write a beat, dude, writing a beat is it's a loop. Okay, like you're. But
I feel like you still have to have some sort of rhythm.
Yeah, you gotta. But I mean, to do a rhythm, that's actually the thing that's really cool and fun about playing the drums is you're basically playing pretty much the same thing again and again and again and again with some variation. Don't get me wrong, but it's not hard to do.
But like there is like a tier of like who's like really good, and there's clearly like some sort of
and it's funny that you mentioned that. I think what makes a good rapper, like that's a good question to ask. Like, what is it that truly makes a good rapper? Right. I would say it's a few things. The first thing that's most important, and really it's not just a good rapper, it's any musician. You're looking to elicit an emotional response out of someone. It's like when we listen to music, we want to connect, we want to vibe, like that's why people listen to music to begin with. And music is one of those things that is actually able to cause us to have an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And so when I write something, I always have that in mind. It's like I'm always trying to capture some kind of human experience. And that's really what I think makes a rapper a good rapper. It's like, are you speaking?
What makes art good, essentially?
Yeah,
really.
it's like part of an art. It's like,
it is part of an art, but it's like the whole point of the art is like, who are you trying to connect with, and what is the purpose of your creation? Because like, it's funny, what is good art? Because like there's this guy.
Those are two great questions.
Yeah, there's a oh man, for the life of me, I can't remember what his name is, but he was this artist who created ready-mades, where basically like there's something called the Salon in Paris, wherein like I believe it was the 1800s, you would have all these artists submitting their work. Maybe it was Munch, Victor or something, Edward Munch, I think is what his name was, but he submitted a urinal, like an actual urinal, and just submitted it in here. Said, this is art, which technically you can do. It was like
they had like the banana taped on the wall in that museum.
Exactly.
Like that was like art.
And it was like $1 million that it sold for. Okay?
It's like all subjective.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I really think that the easiest way to judge art is based on the impact that it makes on people.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, but that's the thing. I think there are a lot of rappers and musicians out there who just create songs for the hell of it. I've never been able to do that. Every one of the songs that I've ever written is very, very personal to me. And part of the reason why I like writing like that is if it's personal to me, it's going to become personal to someone else.
Yeah. So what drives so what is exactly like, what is your goal in making when you're writing a lyric?
I mean, to be totally honest with you, it's the same goal that every rapper has. It's connection.
Yeah.
It's to be able to share an experience with another person and have them take something away from it. So
do you find it therapeutic?
Oh, very much.
Yeah.
Very much. I mean, there's just something about like the experience of writing also. Like, I think there's a famous researcher, his name is Stephen Kotler, and he talks about this idea of flow. Where basically we just get in the zone when we're
flow state,
and like that's the thing. So when I'm writing, it's very much a flow state. It's just going.
Yeah.
The part that takes
we've heard
time
this from
is the
so
editing.
many. Like we interviewed Mendel Goldman. Is that his name?
Oh yeah, he's so good.
Alnev.
Oh god, I love
like
him.
The running theme between all of them is that they're saying, Yosef David is saying like we just enter this flow state when we write.
Yeah.
That it's just like it comes out. It's like
it just flows. But the thing is what happens afterwards is then you have to edit. And the editing is
and you hate the editing.
I
love editing.
Yeah.
But by the way, Rivka loves it.
I think it's a difference between an artistic brain and like more of a logical brain. I'm definitely not artistic in that way. And I think I have more of like the logical of like ABC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, it's an interesting thing. I think the hardest part of writing for anyone who's interested in trying is just getting started. It's like the first line is always the hardest one to write. But once you get past that, it's like you're good to go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a cool thing. It's
so
to be
funny.
able to
Most
do.
of my journal entries are me contending with the fact that I can't start. I'm like, I don't know what to write. And then after I have this sentence of, I'm having a really hard time starting this entry because I don't know. It's the blank page, right?
Yeah.
It's just like everything unfolds.
There's a really cool book about that. Actually, it's more of a textbook. Actually, you should check this out. It's called The Artist's Way.
Yeah.
And basically what it is, and it's a really cool way to kind of overcome self-judgment. I forgot the author's name, but you could find the book. It's like $20 on Amazon. It's great. But what the author suggests is that you write 3 pages a day, just free thought, 3 pages a day. And the thing that's really cool about that is that you learn to be less judgmental about yourself. It is perfectly fine to fill up those pages, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what to write, blah, 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 blah. But it's fun because when you actually do something like that, you take a step back and it's like, I've accepted myself in doing something that might not be my best.
Also, what happens is you get a sense of clarity because in your head, things are a lot scarier. Things are a lot more confusing. Things are a lot more like there's everything there. And then when you like put it down on paper, you're like, there's actually a couple running things that I'm having and they're actually pretty clear.
Like break it down.
Yeah.
I see that also in general with skills. Like when I want to learn a new skill in the beginning, it's so scary because it's all unknown. And then you just start. I feel like that's the best way for me to do it. You just start and you're going to suck in the beginning.
Do it scared.
But then you just learn. You just learn how to get better and better over time. Yeah.
You nailed it. You guys need to stop talking because you're giving away all my secrets as a therapist. You guys, why are you so healthy?
We should be therapists.
Seriously.
We're putting up a show. We're putting up a show.
I'm not even kidding. This is, I mean, like that's literally everything that I'm teaching my patients. I mean, you're echoing it beautifully. It's funny, like, just like you said, our thoughts exist very differently in our heads than outside of our heads.
Yeah.
And, I think this is also, I mean, look, the fact that you pay a therapist, it really speaks about how horrible certain cultures are, especially in the United States. Because at the end of the day, like, we shouldn't have to pay a person for them to actually listen to us and give us support and feedback.
I mean, I don't think it's, I understand why that's the business model of it, because it's the only way you're going to get great therapists who are motivated enough to like be
stay
go to
attuned
school
and everything
for
like
all
that.
that.
Because it is hard work.
But it is a weird concept that like you're banking off of other people's issues.
It literally is. But I mean, the thing is that let's say you don't want to pay a therapist. It's like, true story. How I became a therapist was I hated the therapist that my parents brought me to. My parents took me to see this therapist, this Israeli guy in the northwest suburbs, and he was terrible. I mean, I poured my heart and soul out to him, and instead of worrying about what I was saying, he was more concerned about earning my parents' money. And that was very disheartening to me because he could have helped and he didn't. And that bothered me to no end. And
what was those therapy sessions like? Like he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was advice? Like it felt like I was kind of talking to a wall. It's like I go in, I pour my heart out. I told him, at the time I was dating 5 different girls who lived within a 30-mile radius of one another.
How do you do that?
It was before social media.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, it sounds fun. It was really just chaotic. And you have to understand, it wasn't just dating. I was in relationships with them. So I was lying to literally everyone and keeping it straight. And it's just like, when you actually think about what's involved with that, it's very dysfunctional. And sane, normal, healthy people don't behave like that. I was really in a dark place.
Yeah.
And I was transparent with this guy. I was open. And instead of like actually being supportive, he's like, oh, well, when are you going to like stop being a pain in the neck to your parents? It's like, well,
oh, wow.
It was very disheartening. So, and by the way, I had another one in college. I went through a bad breakup, depression. I go in to see this therapist, and this is actually the fun story. So I go in to see this therapist. I'm really depressed. And like half his hair is like peroxide through like one eyebrow as well. So like half his hair is blonde, very weird looking guy. So I spend like the first half hour pouring my soul out to this dude. And I'm like, so what do you think I should do? And he's like, well, I don't know. I said, so why did I come speak to you? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, dude, are you messing with me? Like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I don't know. So I'm like, why am I talking to you? Like, how is this supposed to help me?
Right.
So
was he using that as a method to try to?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. There is a method. It's called person-centered therapy, where you're basically a parrot. It's like, wow, that sounds really hard. That sounds really difficult. It sounds to me like you're going through something, right? It's like, duh.
You just like repeat it back to them.
You're repeating it back.
Yeah.
And
like Inception almost to
exactly,
try to plant
there
a
is
solution
some
in their
value.
head.
There is value to that, but I can't say it's great.
Yeah. Okay? Or was he trying to also say, I don't know you well enough. Let's keep the sessions going.
It didn't last to that because I basically got up. I like was about to leave. And as I'm about to slam the door in his face, he said, I think you should write it all down. And so what did I do? I went home and I wrote 120 pages. And I'll tell you something. It's the best therapy I ever did.
Wow.
So like, believe it or not,
so maybe he wasn't too bad.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, writing it's a really good alternative to therapy, but
but also that's also not, you're not paying someone to say, okay, write it all down. You're also paying for someone to understand what you're going through and give you some sort of insight and wisdom based on like your unconscious bias, whatever you've got going on. Right?
You're 100% right. I mean, that is a truth. But, the biggest problem in therapy today, believe it or not, is access. Because therapy is expensive. I mean, my God, I charge anywhere between $150 to $200 per session. I charge quite a bit of money. Now, I know what my clients are getting. Like, I'm never going to rip them off. And I tell people all the time, my goal is to put myself out of business. I am not the therapist that you're going to see for 20 years. I'm the therapist who wants you like in a better state over the next 6 months.
That's what I was saying about it. That like, it's kind of weird that the benefit, kind of like what is it called? The medicine industry. What is it called? Pharmaceutical. Yeah. Like how like getting people sick kind of benefits them, and that's the same thing with therapy. It's like them coming back to you and not being healthy benefits you. It's like
I actually think that would be like a great show, to be honest with you, where I just make my clients so crazy that they keep coming back to me. It's like I put the psycho in psychotherapy. This could be great.
You should try that. You should try that.
Oh, no, I literally do. I have some clients, like one of my clients literally has a hashtag of like, things my therapist says, because I'm way out of the box. Like I'm a total misogynist.
Like, so how come you didn't want to kind of correct for that access problem that you see and kind of charge?
Oh, I did. Okay. I didn't. So for years I did. I mean, I barely ate, but like, I'd like to think about it like this. I put in my time. Now I will tell you, I have a couple clients on my caseload who don't pay me anything. I literally see them for free, but it's only because the need is so unbelievably dire. Yeah. And it's honestly a pleasure, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I do donate things, but I like donate my time. But for the most part, how I correct access is my practice is entirely virtual. So I don't see anyone in person. And what's good about that is like any person can like log on to like Google Meet or any other platform that I use. And you could do it from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to schlep out. I also do sessions very late at night. So I do sessions 6 nights a week at 9, 10, and 11 p.m. And my philosophy behind this is like my wife goes to sleep at 9, so I could either like do stupid stuff on YouTube or I could like actually help people. So, that's kind of the thing. But yeah, it's a hard dichotomy. I mean, it's something that I check in with myself about frequently. And, one of the things that I love saying to my clients, I'm like, dude, you don't need therapy. Like, you're good. And some people, they just like the check-in, and that's fine. I mean, if you're paying and you want to do that, that's cool. But for the most part, like, I'm very transparent with my patients. Like, there have been plenty of conversations that I've had where it's like, you don't really need this. Like, you're okay.
It's probably such a good feeling to be able to
relationship with them, though.
What was that?
I'm always so curious about that, because I'm sure you build like some sort of personal relationship alongside the therapy. So is it hard to kind of be like, goodbye? And
it's funny. It's ridiculous hard. It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that I never say goodbye. I always leave the door open. And I have so many clients who like, I have a client who just finished her like associates in graphic design. And I haven't counseled her in 2 years. And she wrote, because this was a big thing. Like, she was working in a place that was really unsupportive. And I said to her, like, yo, you got to get back in. You have this talent. And she's a magnificent artist. She's really good at what she does. But, when she finally finished her degree, she reached out to me years after working together. And that for me is always really special. And that's the thing. I mean, I tell my clients this all the time. You're paying me for my advice, not for my friendship. That's the thing. My friendship is free.
I actually have a question about that, because I actually studied psychology. I have my bachelor's in psychology.
Cool.
So I remember learning in school, a lot of the teachers would tell us that like therapy is not about advice. You don't give advice. You kind of like
that's what everyone says.
It would get me so nervous, because I was like, we're literally sitting here paying money to learn about, be professional in this specific area. You go to a doctor, they give you advice. Mm-hmm. They could say like, go get other doctors' advice also, but like, to not give advice seems so interesting to me. Like what?
So now we get controversial. Okay.
Here we go.
And this is yeah, exactly. This is very controversial. I'm really happy to go on record saying this. I think there are a lot of therapists out there, because they don't give advice, I think they're ripping people off. Yeah. Genuinely. I could sit in my session and I could be like, it sounds to me like blah, blah, blah the entire time. And the client, by the way, throughout that experience, they've expressed themselves, but they could do that with any other human being that they have.
That's what, I was like, you can do that with a friend.
Like that's not, I'm sorry, but I think that is a terrible way of using people. I think that it's very important for therapists to actually teach people something. If you and I say this to my patients, every patient, the first session, I always say, I believe the role of a therapist that gets most frequently neglected is that of a teacher. Meaning, if you're shelling out time and money to meet with me, I better be offering something to you that you could actually take home. And it's very hard, because like, I don't ever want to, I care very deeply. Okay, so I'll put it to you like this. I think about my death every single day. Wow. I deal with a lot of trauma. My head is messed up. I see a therapist about it. It's called vicarious traumatization. One of the perks of becoming a therapist is you get to listen to really dark, horrible stuff every single day for the rest of your life. So my head is a messed up place. And I could tell you that when I think about my death every single day, it also really holds me accountable for like what I'm actually doing for people. I don't want to take advantage. I think about, like, it says when you die and go to heaven, it says somewhere in Talmud that they ask you 2 questions. They ask you, did you set aside time to like study Torah? And then they also ask you, did you do your business ethically? And I think about that question every day, every single day of my life. And so it doesn't sit well with me. And look, there are therapists who will argue, well, you're not secure in yourself, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's right to take advantage of people, especially when they're in a situation where they need support, where they need guidance. And to be honest with you, there are a lot of therapists who believe, well, the client is the expert on themselves. It's like, if they were the expert on themselves, then why are they coming to see me?
Right.
They should know all the answers already. And I don't believe that. I think when people see a therapist, they're looking for guidance, they're looking for support. And it's my job to be able to do that and provide that. But now this begs the question. What question are you going to ask? I think I might know.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No. What question?
No. You can finish what you were saying.
He wants to know if it's the same question.
I want to know if it's the same question.
It's not.
It's not. Okay. So then this begs the question. If I'm saying the client is not, in fact, the professional, meaning they are not the expert on themselves, how the hell am I supposed to know all the answers? That's a really good question. Yeah. So I'll tell you the answer. All human beings have the same needs. All human beings have the same needs. All relationships have the same needs, right? So what I've done professionally is I've really worked on being very attuned to what a client actually needs. And when I ask myself that question, I reflect on that question endlessly. I've become really good at narrowing in, like most of the time, I just need a client to say a few words to me and I already know like what it is lacking. Now, here's the thing, getting them to attain their need, that's challenging because as a therapist, remember, I'm not a doctor. So, and I use this metaphor, like, let's say, God forbid, I get shot in the shoulder, right? I go to see a medical doctor. What's the doctor going to do for me? Ideally, pull the bullet out of me, patch me up, maybe give me a pain med if I'm lucky. But throughout that experience, I haven't had to do anything. The doctor fixes me.
Yeah.
Now, as a therapist, I can't fix anyone.
Right. You have to get them to do it themselves.
I have to get them to pull the bullet out of themselves.
Yeah.
And if you could envision pulling a bullet out of yourself, it's a very gory and unpleasant experience that no one actually wants to go through. That's therapy.
Yeah.
No one wants to do this. This is not fun. Okay. But if you do it and you actually pull the bullet out of yourself, you get better.
Have you ever had a session where it was so immediately apparent what this person needed to do or what this person was lacking, but you had to go, it's slower and you had to pace yourself almost with like
every session?
It's
frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's very frustrating.
It reminds me of like dealing with like kids, and I'm sure you have kids, so but like I'm saying, like I see with my nieces and nephews, like you just need them to, I don't know, get to bed, but they're having a tantrum, and you're like, how can I take a step back and like figure this out that they get to bed? Like it doesn't. I saw a meme yesterday. I'm still laughing to myself over this, where it says, how come the people who want to go to sleep are putting to sleep the people who don't want to go to sleep? It's like, so funny.
Doesn't it make sense that the people who don't want to go to sleep should put to bed the people who want to go to sleep? Like, I want my kids.
We should reverse it. Yeah.
Let them put me to bed. Like, if they want to run around the house and go crazy, like knock yourself. I don't even care. I'm done.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, all I could tell you, it's really brilliant what you're saying, because the pacing of therapy.
I feel like the actual practice.
That's the hard part.
Right.
That's the art, I guess you could say. Because on the one hand, I have to push people. On the other hand, you do that too much and they back away.
And that's also where it's almost fun in a way, because that's when you really have to know your client and know exactly.
Build the rapport. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And know when you can be like, this is when you can do this. I know you got this almost.
It's a very fine line. And I will tell you, it's hard because, I think everyone is looking for answers. Not everyone is willing to actually follow through with the answer once they find it.
That's what I was going to say. It's like so much easier to listen to advice versus actually take the advice and go with it.
That's the big thing.
Do you find that some people question the practices you give them in order to get better?
Here's the thing. Sometimes I get lucky. I'll tell you this. I have both Jewish and non-Jewish clients.
Yeah.
I mean, what I found, especially with Orthodox Jewish clients, is they question everything. They question
we all have anxiety. Dude.
Oh my God.
It's anxiety.
Yeah, man. They literally do.
So
they
funny.
question everything. I really like the clients. I mean, obviously, when they just take, at face value what I say, oh God, that's a dream. But it doesn't happen.
We're literally like taught from kids to just question everything. Yeah. So it's just in our blood.
And by the way, it's so interesting how like, you can really tell a lot about a person's intelligence based on the questions they're asking.
Yeah.
So it's a good skill that we put in our children. But, at the same time, I think there's a time and place. I also think that there's a time that, we have to learn how to listen. I always tell my patients, it's really fun. When I was 16, I said the dumbest thing that a human being is capable of saying. What the dumbest thing a human being could possibly say is, I need to make my own mistakes. It's like, you need to make your own mistakes. Sweet. Here, don't put your hand on a burning stove. Okay. I'll tell you, it's a horrible idea, but if you need to make your own mistakes, have at it. Okay. Like, it's absurd.
I mean, I tell myself that all the time.
I need to make my own mistakes.
I'm always like, I need to learn for myself.
But this is the issue. I mean, the problem with making our own mistakes is like, first of all, experience is not always the most reliable teacher, because even if we share similar experiences, it doesn't mean we're always going to come away with the same lesson if we even get the lesson to begin with. Okay.
I mean, I guess it's a certain type of teacher. Like I'm saying, it teaches you certain things about yourself.
It does. And I'm not going to say don't go through challenge, but what I am going to say to you is, if you have a person who you genuinely trust in your life trying to give you a piece of guidance, it makes sense to try to listen to them. The reason being is because with every mistake we make, that has a direct impact on our self-esteem. There are consequences. There are all different things that happen.
Again, the chicken and the egg, right? Yeah. So you have to understand that by learning through mistakes and experiences, that's something that you can grasp. I truly relate to what you're saying so much, but I think that it's not ingrained in you.
Yeah.
If you're just like taking everything.
I don't know.
And I mean, this is part of the reason why I don't like, I mean, I have two teenagers on my caseload, but for the most part, I don't work with teenagers. And the reason why is by the time people get to me, they should know that like, as a teenager, we're going to make mistakes. That's going to happen. Our brain is in a state of pruning. We're going to be impulsive. We're not going to listen. That's going to happen.
Interrupting for a second to talk about our sponsor, Talking Photography. If you're looking for someone to take gorgeous newborn photos, portraits, family photo shoot, whatever it is, this is the place to go. She's got an incredible studio for newborns with all the equipment you need. You can also arrange a place where you want the photos taken. At Talking Photography, it's about getting quality photos as well as a quality experience. So head over to @TalkingPhotography on Instagram or TalkingPhotographyStudios.com to book a session. Now back to the episode.
There comes a point in life where we need to be able to humble ourselves and recognize when people, so this is an important use of words and vocabulary here. We have to be able in life to be able to evaluate when we're safe and when we're not.
Okay.
We have to, this is a skill that is constantly downplayed. We have to know who is safe and who is not.
Yeah.
And if you find that a person is safe, which we'll define momentarily, if we find that there's a safe person, it's really important that we say, okay, so this person is safe. Therefore, I need to trust them, and that means follow through with what they're saying. All right. So I'll give you a very good example. Okay. My wife, obviously, it's actually really interesting. We talk about this idea. This is a totally separate conversation, but, there's this thing that every human being has to be attuned to. It's this idea of a collective reality, right? That our realities are heavily based upon the people who we keep close to us. So when a person dates, the thing that we never think about is that the person that we're dating is going to actually have the largest impact on our perception of reality. That's a thing.
What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is it's okay, so think about it like this. I'm a rapper. Okay. So whenever, most rap music, most rappers, they're all I'm the best rapper, right? So let's say I'm an idiot and I say, I'm the best rapper alive. I'm not the best rapper alive. Token is, if you know who Token is the best rapper alive. If you don't know who he is, he's Jewish, by the way. You need to hear him. He is, in fact, the best rapper alive.
We'll take it.
So, and Token, if you're listening to this, I love you and you're the man. You're great. But if you, if I believe I'm the best rapper alive, and yet my 5 closest confidants, people who want nothing but the best for me, come up to me and say, Charles, every time you get on a microphone, you sound like an imbecile. Who's the one in the wrong, me or them? Me.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like a guitarist, I could think I'm the best guitarist in the world. If no one agrees with me, I'm not. So we have
barring the exceptions to that rule, I guess you have to.
Well, but it's all about who are we selecting to define our reality for us. If you're getting married to a person, if you're dating a person seriously, essentially what you were saying is you are going to define my reality and I'm going to define yours. It's funny how when we date, we rarely have that in mind. So I'll give you a really good example of this. My wife and I, we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had 2 kids. We needed to get a house. This was in 2020. It was during COVID. So I find a house. It's walking distance from a Chabad house. I'm like, this is going to be great. So we go to see the house and I love the house. My wife is like, I hate it. I'm like, what's wrong with the house? She's like, well, it's up on a hill. I don't want the kids to fall. I'll build a fence. Oh, well, the kitchen is small. I'm like, the kitchen is legitimately double the size of the kitchen that we have. It was a big argument. It was a very big argument. I trust my wife. We didn't get the house. Okay. And by the way, we ended up with a better one, So I trust my wife.
Yeah.
It's not enough to say, oh yeah, I trust my wife. There has to be an action that backs it up. And so that's kind of the thing. Ideally, when you see a therapist, the goal is you want to trust this person. That's actually, if you want to talk about what you're paying a therapist for, what you're paying a therapist for, ideally is to help define the reality of your life, to help define your blind spots. So
right. Because a million people could be telling you a bunch of different advice. You have to find that one person that you're going to listen to.
So we have to ask the question, what characteristics are we looking for in those people who we actually define our reality? So, more than anything, we want a person who's safe, So that's the big thing. But yeah.
But don't you also want someone who knows you the best? Yeah. That's what it's interesting.
I guess they're safe.
Transferable, right? Mm-hmm. I think maybe people want different things, if that makes sense.
It could be. I'll tell you this, more than anything, you want a person who you can be vulnerable. I'll put it to you like this, okay? You want a person who cares more about you than they do the relationship they have with you. So let me explain.
Yeah, but that's not a therapist.
No, it can't. It is a therapist.
But they care more about you?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good therapist, okay? Meaning, like I told you, my goal is to put myself out of business, okay? That's how it should be. They should care. So whenever we give a person a piece of feedback, that is very rarely a comfortable experience. Right? Going to a person and saying, hey, you actually have schmutz on your face. Okay. Not super comfortable. Doesn't feel great. Okay. But we should be able to give people that feedback with the intent of saying to them, like, I care about you so deeply that I can't allow you to continue, hurting yourself, harming yourself, walking around with schmutz on your face, whatever. Okay. Right. Even if that situation is uncomfortable. But now it has
nothing to do with the person giving the advice. It has everything to do with the
person receiving.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with,
so I guess,
how deeply do you care about that
I guess what
person?
you're saying is like, let's say someone's like, yeah, why can't I talk to my friends about my problems or my sibling? And it's like, they're too biased in the relationship. So I see what you're saying.
So essentially, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. They are too biased. This is the reason why I don't think, parents are great. Don't get me wrong. But I think our parents are very frequently biased towards us, especially if you've ever met a Jewish mother before. That's an absolute fact. Yeah. Right. So also, we're just saying like, okay, and can I use profanity? Like, can I?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Thank God. Okay. So yes, safe space therapy is bullshit. Okay. Like I told you, the entire idea of therapy is to be able to put people in a state of discomfort, right? We want to put people in a state where we're pushing them. So I say it like this, okay? Human beings exist on the spectrum between acceptance and change, right? Moving anywhere on that spectrum is very uncomfortable. So there has to be this level of discomfort. Human beings don't like this. The problem is, I think a lot of people, when they go to see a therapist, what ends up happening is the therapist is just trying to make them feel good. And that's not what this is about. Let's talk about my business model for a second. This is a lot of fun. So you've heard the customer is always right in sales, right? That's the motto. The customer is always right. Yeah. In my field, the customer is frequently wrong. I have to tell them you're wrong and then ask for payment. That's insane. Okay. But honestly, I think that people are always drawn to truth and authenticity.
Do you have a community of like therapists who agree with you on this, that you like?
No. No. I mean, I shouldn't say this. I think there are a few. I think there are some therapists out there who honestly, like, they do it right. Yeah. They're quasi philosophers. They are people who are willing to teach, because I think part of the reason why therapists are afraid to teach is because the problem is that with everything that is said in session, you can technically be sued for. So the more I put myself out there, the greater my potential of saying something wrong that could get me sued. You can get sued for what? Giving the wrong advice? For anything. For giving let's say I tell someone, hey, I think it's time for you guys to get divorced. That's a bold statement. I don't know any couples counselor who says that. Yeah. I do. Really? I do. And the way I'm that's very controversial. Yeah, it's very controversial. Yeah. The way I'm able to do this is when I have so much evidence to this point that if I had to go on a stand and defend, like if someone asked, well, why would you say that in session? There is such overwhelming, unbelievable evidence that it's irrefutable. Because that's how you win a court case. You win a court case based on which side has the better evidence, right? So that's kind of what I do. Okay, when I say something, it's rooted in logic. And that's the thing, people don't really talk about therapy and logic. When we talk about logic, we think about lawyers, right? Therapists have to be more logical than lawyers. Honestly. And the thing is but it's like, do you think that's a smart tool to tell someone directly what they should be doing? Not in terms of like legality. That one more time. Well, do you think it's a good tool to tell people exactly what they should be doing? Or better yet, forget what they should be doing, what they need to be doing if they want to be healthy. Like this is kind of the thing that I think people struggle to acknowledge. All the time people say, I know I'm very guilty of this. I am no saint. Okay. But there are plenty of times where people say, I'm trying my best. And it's like, no. Okay. It's not about trying your best. It's like, are you hitting the threshold of what you need to be doing in order to attain the goal that you're looking for? So it's like, if I want to lose weight, okay, if I go to the gym once a week, yeah, that's great. Don't get me wrong. But if I say, oh, that's doing my best, that's obviously not going to do the trick solely in getting me to lose weight. It's the same thing with mental health. It's like, you could say, I'm trying my best. And look, I'll coach you. Any little baby step you make, hell yeah, great. I applaud it. But let's also be real here, okay? There are people who literally, they work on their mental health once a week for 1 hour when they're meeting me. Outside of that, nothing. Right. So what do you think is going to happen? But that's the thing. I think people need honest feedback. I think they need authenticity. I think their therapist has to be the person to tell them the things they don't want to hear. But how do we do it? We have to establish a lot of rapport, and that patient needs to know what my intentions are. That's honestly, and this is why I say all the time, and it's forget what I say, it's rooted in science. What studies have shown is the biggest predictor of a person's success in therapy is how deeply bonded they are to their therapist. It's all about the connection. If you don't have a good bond to your therapist, I tell my patients all the time, okay, you do 2 sessions, 3 sessions tops. If you don't feel a close bond with me after 2 or 3 sessions, done. Don't
that was back. One of the first things my therapist actually told me in our first session. It's more about the relationship. So that's why I was getting a little not confused when you were saying it's you have to find a therapist who cares more about you than the relationship. But I think that they're one and the same. Essentially, a good therapist will utilize the relationship to really care about you. I think maybe if a therapist is caring more about like having some sort of image of therapy in the client's head, and that's important to them in terms of like the relationship, then maybe that's where you know,
I'll tell you this,
be careful.
The greatest compliment I've ever gotten from a couple that I was working with, they said, Charles, I don't know whether or not we should thank you or invite you over for a barbecue. Okay, that's what I'm going for. I don't want the experience to feel sterile in any way, shape, or form. When you sit and talk with me, I want it to feel like you're talking to your best friend in the world. You know, and I could tell you, I'm actually working on a book. And when I say I'm working on a book, this has been like 2 years in the work and I have like 30 pages.
You're working on a book.
So I'm working on my book that hopefully won't go into perpetuity, that eventually will be finished sometime this decade. But my idea is I'm creating a book teaching people how to be therapists for other people, right? It's called How to Act Like a Great Therapist. Okay.
That's
just
cool.
The action where if you think about it, every person at some point of their lives is called upon to actually be a therapist to another person. And yet frequently, you know, especially in those moments of vulnerability, they don't exactly respond in a way that's successful. That's what the book is there for. And the benefit of actually being that person to help in that situation, A, that person is benefiting. B, you're benefiting because it makes you feel good to know that you're actually helping that person. And C, we're achieving like the entire purpose of life, right? We're trying to make this world a better place. You know, I think a lot of people are so stuck in their issues that they forget how much they are capable of offering to other people.
That's such a cool concept.
It's an, you know, it's really the craziest thing. When I go to shul and I look around my synagogue, I see a bunch of people who are suffering. I mean, thank God in my shul, like a lot of people come to me, they talk to me, they tell me like their stuff. And I see a lot of people who are suffering. And what that means to me is I have to be that much kinder, that much more outgoing, that much more compassionate. And it's not just for me because I'm a therapist. It's something that every human being should be doing. Every human being should recognize that every person has a challenge in their life. Every person has something that they're going through. And it's our job to just show other people compassion because no one's life is perfect. I have a person on my caseload, real talk, $40 million. They're worth $40 million. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. They still need compassion, you know? So it's like, these things are very, very important to think about. We always need to be recognizing that it's not just about us. And that's one of the problems with mental health is that it kind of, you know, we get so stuck in our own situation. It's very hard to recognize what our impact is. But when you finally turn that perspective outward and you get people connected, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, there's something very pernicious about mental health issues that make you feel very alone. That like you're not you're the only one that is specifically going through this kind of whatever you're going through.
You know, I got a quote. So YYJ, Yosef Y. Jacobson is like one of my favorite Chabad rabbis, and I've learned tons from him. But he recently said on a podcast, which was extremely profound. He said, and it's true, the first thing that the Torah says is not good for you. It says, Lo tov hayosa adam levado. It says, it is not good for man to be alone. That's the thing.
I think that's the biggest struggle when you're going through something, feeling like it's alone. And then the second someone else is like, yeah, I totally know how that feels. You're like, that relieves such a stress on you. You're like, oh, I'm not alone in this. It's crazy. I think that being like ostracized is probably like the worst feeling for people.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why there's so much bad that comes with that, where people are like sheep and they follow because they don't want to be isolated, but also like it can really help people to understand that like so many people are going through.
And that's also
the same things.
The awful thing about negative self-talk that makes you isolate yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're your worst enemy as well. On top of that, not seeking connection.
Comparing yourself to others.
Yeah. But that's the thing.
So much
it's like
better.
That person who's saying, I'm an awful person, like as soon as that person reaches out and recognizes like, oh my God, I'm actually having a hugely positive impact on this other individual.
Yeah.
All of a sudden their own stuff. It's like, this is actually what happens. And now let me complain more about therapists. It's interesting. a lot of people, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where it's like we get nervous to burden other people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to burden them with my issues. It's actually, I don't know if you ever saw this.
I'm such a burden.
I'm such a burden. If you ever saw the Netflix documentary Stutz, and Stutz is hilarious. Like Jonah Hill comes in the office. He's like, what are you going to burden me with today? Like, it's the funniest thing in the world. I love that he says that. But the thing is that you can't burden a person who loves you. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the benefit of burdening people. It's not like they're not going through their own stuff. We think, oh, they're already going through so much. Why put our stuff on top of them? Well, if they love us, putting our stuff on top of them gives them a break from focusing on their own stuff. There are a lot of very unhealthy therapists who are so focused on their patient's stuff that they neglect their own. I could tell you, I mean, it was funny. You know, I told you prior to college and even during college and a little bit after, I was very manipulative. I mean,
I was going to ask the connection between how you got to where you are now about not taking advantage of people and having that be such a core value, and then taking advantage of all those women in your past.
Right? It's like, a huge difference.
That's a pretty big shift.
I'll tell you something. My rabbi, when I told him I was going to become a therapist, so my mashpia, I'm actually seeing him at this wedding that I'm going to soon. He knew this about me. He knows all my history. And so he said to me, Charles, you have to make me a promise. You have to say that if you're going to become a therapist, you will never give a piece of advice that you don't personally follow yourself. And I could tell you that 100% that is who I am. I have never broken that promise. I will never give a piece of advice that I don't personally follow. I hold myself very deeply accountable. I have to be more mentally healthy than my patients at all times, which means, okay, you're ready for a story. Hold on to your seat.
Yes, we're ready.
This is hardcore.
Okay.
2 years ago, my wife and I were having a huge blow up fight. I don't know what the fight was over, but we were having a really big fight. And my wife turns to me and like screams at me, why don't you treat me like one of your patients? And I said, you're not my fucking patient. And she said, no, if you could give that amount of love and care and energy and attention to those people who are basically little more than perfect strangers to you, how much more so should you be doing that to your wife and children? I was like, shit. Hit it out of the park.
That hits hard, yeah.
Hit it out of the park. And that completely changed everything for me. You know, it's funny because like in graduate school, you say, oh, you know, you're not going to treat your loved one like a patient. No, I literally do. If I treat my patients really well and I treat my family even better. But it's because my wife also, this is the thing, my wife's an ex-IDF soldier, okay? The reason why I'm loyal to my wife and literally no other woman is because it's not about loving her.
She will kill you if not.
She will. She will. We have this joke of like,
she knows how.
Our backyard is the forest. And it's like, if everyone, like me or my wife just happens to go missing, we know where we are, okay? Like we know where we've been put. The thing is it's like, yeah, my wife, my rabbi asks me all the time, how come you're loyal to her? And I say, it's really simple. I'm scared of her. Okay. I'm terrified. She's an ex-IDF soldier. Me. Okay. But the thing is, and when I say fear, it's actually, it's the perfect answer because it's not just a fear. It's a fear of losing her. It's a respect that I have for her. I never had that for any other woman. And it's actually really interesting. You know, you both have heard of Jordan Peterson probably. What put Dr. Peterson on the map was his research into gender differences. And one of the things that he discovered in a study, he was also, I mean, he was a professor, don't get me wrong, but his research really heavily focused on this and different levels of aggression among men and women, things like that. So the thing that he said that was quite profound is he found that, you know, 85% of women care about a man's economic viability, right? When we're dating, it's like, what does the guy do for a living? What can he provide? For sure. And that's our society, okay? We could complain about this from today until tomorrow. The data doesn't lie. And look, we know this among our friends in the way we brought up. It matters, okay? Yes. Only 10% of men care about what a woman does for a living, economic viability, blah, blah, blah. So what is it that men really look for in a woman? The number one thing, boundaries. What are her boundaries? Because if you think about it, I mean, look, okay, I know I'm a fabulous looking guy, but if I take my clothes off, I'm probably going to have someone, someone's going to call the police. A woman.
Us.
Okay. That would be you both. Okay. But if a woman does that, there are going to be a lot of takers, right? There are going to be a lot of takers. So women knowing that have to have really strong boundaries. And it's interesting because
it's about respect, like the guys.
It's about respect. It's about, it's what do you put in place? It's like, when there's a no, can you abide by that? Yeah. And that was the thing. I mean, my wife is the only person that I've ever truly had unbelievable respect for. And she's tough.
When you met her, were you guys both religious or you were already?
Ish. I mean, like we met at a Chabad house on Tu B'Av, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. Nice.
True story.
Romantic.
Right?
For anyone who doesn't know, Tu B'Av is like the Jewish Valentine's Day.
Exactly. Yeah. And like the thing is it's like my wife, first of all, for the first 2 months, wanted nothing to do with me. She broke up with me so many damn times. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, God.
And I could tell you that it was actually really funny because, I mean, yeah, we were like hooking up. We were spending nights together. But, you know, there came a point where I said to her, like, I want to be with you. You know, like, I really think that this is it. And she was like, no, not doing that. And I woke up one morning, I packed up all my stuff and I said to her, look, I could see myself marrying you. I could honestly say I would want to spend the rest of my life with you. But if you're not going to be with me, I'm done. And I walked out. That was the scariest moment of my life. But she came running after me and she said, okay, fine, I'll be with you, blah. Okay. But like that's the thing. So, I mean, ultimately I had to speak her language. I had to set a boundary with her for her to come to me. A lot of guys are like, oh, I just need to be nice. I just need to be nice. I just need to be nice. And that's true. But also there's a limit as well.
I have a question. What do you think about the whole, you know, the environment with shidduch dating? Not just having a matchmaker in between, but also the idea of like not keeping shomer. What do you think of that concept? Do you think it's okay, helpful, necessary?
And it's also relating to the boundaries that you were saying about like women setting and things like that.
It's very hard because I'll tell you something. First of all, I see a lot of benefit to shomer nagia. I see a lot of benefit to it. On a psychological level, I think it's a really powerful thing. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest.
Could you expound on that? Like what? Yeah. Why is it psychological?
Why psychologically? Because you're getting to know the person outside of touch. The thing that's really interesting with touch is that it doesn't require any communication. You know, we talk about there are the 5 love languages. Technically, there are only 4. So we have 5 love languages. Did you hear about this? Did you learn about this? Okay. Emotional affirmation, quality time, acts of service, gift giving, and touch. Okay. Gift giving is bullshit. Okay. Like
it's like everyone loves gift. It's
exactly.
Not.
Gift giving is not a love language. Anyone who thinks that, I'm sorry. No.
You haven't met my mother.
Okay. Yeah. But the problem is
it's like, acts of service, your mom.
I mean, it could be acts of service, but and that's the thing. I don't even know why gift giving doesn't file under an act of service. Eventually you get to a point where the person you love has everything they need already. You can't just do gift giving. I'm sorry. That's superficial and stupid. You can't be a gift giver. Okay. But what I can tell you, and this is the important thing, what's interesting about touch is it doesn't require any emotion. You know, interestingly enough, I'm sorry, it doesn't require any emotion necessarily. That's kind of scary to think about, but that is true.
I don't know about that. Okay.
Well, and here's the thing: you're a healthy woman, okay? But you also have to understand, like men, there are plenty of men who can have sex completely without feeling anything. Yeah,
I think that there's still emotion in there.
And girls can do that.
It should be. I agree with you. It should be. I can't say that that's healthy.
I think women can do it too, but they just get emotionally attached. After the touch,
they severed apart. Like I think it's connected, but you're separated.
You are 100% right. What I can't say though is that touch doesn't require communication. Yeah. So here's the part that's interesting. Men are not like we are not brought up to be emotionally aware. More importantly, emotionally validating. Okay. So it's like here's emotional validation for our listeners. Okay. I like telling this story. So I used to, the therapists have way more issues than their patients do, right? Like we're all on the same page. You don't become a therapist because life is going great, right? So anyway, I'm working with this girl.
Seems like a fun thing to do.
She's 25 years old, like literally the most average looking woman you've ever seen. Okay, just picture average.
Can you describe it?
Like literally just perfectly average.
Joking,
like, nothing remarkable. So she, of course, is a little bit of a disaster. 25 years old, already divorced. She had cheated on her husband. And I told her, I don't really buy this whole, because my wife is asking me for validation. I'm like, I feel like this is dumb. And she told me a really interesting story. She told me this story that she and her husband, so we live in Jersey. I don't know if you do this here in New York, where she and her husband went down the shore. You know what that means? It's like you go to the beach. It's like terminology. I'm going down the shore this weekend. Like, it's hilarious.
It's a New Jersey thing.
It's a New Jersey thing, Delaware. Okay, like that area. So we went down the shore. So she's like, me and my ex-husband, we went down the shore. And, I was putting on my bikini. And I look at myself in the mirror. And I say, wow, I look like a fat cow. Now, whenever a woman says that to her husband, how is the husband going to respond if he values his life?
No, you look amazing.
And how does the woman respond?
You're lying.
You're lying. Exactly. So here's how you get around this. Here's how you work around this. As a man, you be emotionally validating. You say, wow, honey, that must be so uncomfortable for you.
Oof. I wouldn't want to hear that.
But wait, hold on. Wait, hold on.
Gorgeous, you're supermodel.
Well, wait, okay. And here's the thing. That would be true. You don't want to hear that. And women, girls. Like seriously, saying things that you don't mean, saying things that you don't mean all the time, expecting guys to read between
we want
the
you to
lines.
say you're amazing, and we want to.
We want both. That must be really uncomfortable. But also,
exactly,
you
nailed it. Exactly. But notice how when you first validate it, okay, so when I first say, wow, that must be really uncomfortable for you, especially when you look that beautiful.
Now here's our manipulator right here.
I can see it. And now it hits, right? Okay. So I mean, but like that's the
Is that what you were doing when you were dating 5 women? You were
not at all. And that's the thing. Like I'm actually, so I mean, like when I was growing up, my dad went through a lot of trauma. My dad's like a very tough Brooklyn guy. I grew up in Canarsie. Okay. So like when I told you I was depressed when I was in college, I went through this bad breakup. I remember, like, real talk. This is my upbringing. Okay. My dad picks me up from the airport. And he says to me, what are you, depressed? I said, yeah, like it's a terrible breakup. My dad's like, well, it's not like she's dead. Okay, like that was the support that he gave me. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, it's not like she's dead. You can't say, oh, you know, it's really hard. But no, it's not like she's dead. That's also
like far off the like
very far off. Okay, but that's how I grew up. I had to go to graduate school to learn how to be emotionally validating. Okay, I had to get a wife before I was able to do that. But understand that a lot of men, believe it or not, their love language is emotional affirmation, but they don't realize that because we're not taught emotional affirmation.
Emotional affirmation in a verbal way, you're saying?
In a verbal way.
You're saying you're so amazing.
Validating that person. It's validating that person's experience. Men are not taught this.
I found in my experience that men are very uncomfortable almost when you do affirm them.
It's very unusual. That's not what we're used to. That's not what we're taught. Men are taught to be soldiers. You think soldiers in the battle? Yeah, it is scary. I'm sorry. That's really... No, it's go fight, dude. Okay. It's like, you know, here's the thing. I work in the field of mental health for years of my life. I spent years of my life working in rehabs. Okay. And I had this joke with my colleagues. I just want to call off from work because I'm feeling sad. That's all I want. I just want to be able to call up my boss. Yeah, I'm too sad to come into work today. Like, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
No one cares. Okay. In mental health, in the field of mental health, they don't care, which is unbelievable to me.
I saw this Instagram reel or TikTok. This girl was like, I just got off the interview with my college and I was like really surprised that they wouldn't accommodate my, what was it called? Time deafness. She was like, I have the inability to come on time. Yeah. And she's like, it's just so I don't want to live in this society where they don't accommodate time deafness. I'm like, okay. Or time blindness.
This is the big problem. Here's the major crux and something that we always have to be thinking of. Okay. No one gives a shit about your trauma.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit
about your trauma.
Well, that's good.
I look at
no, you won't. You're not going to care about someone random trauma.
Okay. No, listen, you should.
That is how you see people.
Okay.
That is
You're right. You should, but the world doesn't care about your trauma. And I say this all the time. It's like, your mental health is not your fault. It is your responsibility, though.
I love that mentality.
Okay? This is that is the thing. And by the way, what you're saying is 100% right. You should care. You should care deeply. Unfortunately, like, how fucked up is it that when we go to work, if we go through a terrible trauma, like let's say, God forbid, a person we love passes away, work's like, take off 5 days, you'll be fine. It's like, okay, good. 5 days, done grieving, all set. Thanks. I'm better now. It's like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's very frustrating. And again, this is one of the problems that I have with society is that you're right. People don't care, and they should. They should care. It's terrible. You have to see a therapist. Everyone should care.
I don't think people should care even. You can't take everybody's trauma on your back.
But I mean, here's the thing.
No, it frames your perceptions of people. It frames how you understand how you relate to them.
You can care on a surface level, but you can't take their trauma and fix it.
No, you should care very deeply because it allows you to connect to who they actually are and see them for who they are and be able to love them, right? Like you were saying.
Here's a fun thing. Okay, this is a great skill. It's something I use all the time. Anytime you see a person and you're looking at them and they're talking to you and it's like, dude, honestly, what the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, if you are ever in that mindset of like, what the hell is wrong with you? Instead, ask the question, what happened to you?
Yes.
Right?
And
it builds compassion.
Joe Rogan says this all the time. He's like, I always look at people as like they were a child once.
Exactly. They are like, what you are seeing before you is not just the person. You're seeing the sum of their history.
And understand that if you were in their position, you would not be doing anything different.
But it's unrealistic to take that trauma upon you and if somebody's abusing you, you could go and say, what happened to you that you're abusing me? But at a certain point, you have to take care of yourself first.
You're right.
You can't take everybody's trauma on yourself.
Oh, exactly.
And that person's responsible.
And the liberal.
Okay, but
you
also
think that if someone's abusing you, you should take their trauma on yourself and not be like, it's your responsibility to change that?
It is their responsibility. But here's the thing.
About it.
And, you know, I'll tell you something. My other mushbih, I have two mushbihim. my other mashpia, Mordechai Ben Chiyun in Chicago, he very famously says, it's a very famous quote, he says, the prime achievement of mankind is the capacity to bear opposites simultaneously. What you're saying is that both of these things are true.
Yeah.
On the one hand, yeah, we absolutely have to put ourselves first. On the other hand, we cannot put ourselves so first that we stop caring about other people.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, and this is actually one of the worst parts of our society right now, is that we are very much dichotomized. We are very much dichotomized, and that's absurd because unfortunately, when you're in a state of dichotomy, you're also an idiot. Okay. A wise person is able to see nuance in everything. Right? It's about staying in the gray. This is the famous thing that we say in therapy. We stay in the gray. It's not black and white. And what I can tell you is like, look, on the one hand, and I could tell you this, we always have to take into consideration, are we doing our own work? But at the same time, we have to recognize that part of our own work is recognizing how we fit into society and the world at large as a whole. Okay. And that's why we need a spiritual identity. That's why we need to be very socially aware. I tell people all the time, if you want to cure social anxiety, just be super nice. Be super nice. Like seriously, start caring about other people more than your own anxieties, and you won't be socially anxious.
They say like if you're having anxiety, go do something for someone else.
Right?
Yeah.
I have a question though.
I actually also have a question.
But
I'm so excited.
You go first.
Let's go.
Well, it was a tangent that we kind of didn't close about men and them needing verbal affirmation.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest to somebody to that kind of problem that we have?
So basically what we have to do is we have to teach men that they're allowed to be emotional creatures.
Okay.
That and the emotions. So there, I always teach there are 5 big emotions. It's glad, mad, sad, shame, fear. The order, believe it or not, is important. Glad, mad, sad, shame, and fear. Okay. The emotions that men are allowed to have are glad, they're allowed to be happy, and they're allowed to be angry. The only stuff that's socially acceptable. Sadness, shame, and fear, totally different animal.
Especially fear, I feel
Especially fear.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that's really interesting. Okay. Oh, let's get controversial. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Very frequently, couples come to me and they're stuck in a cycle. And the cycle is the be nice to me cycle. It's like, I'll be nice to you when you're nice to me. Oh yeah, well, I'll be nice to you when you're nice to me. So here's the thing that's interesting. Men will not always be the breadwinners of their families. They will always be the protectors of their family. It is the man's job before all to make the woman feel safe.
That's what I was going to ask. If they're taught to like be more emotional, does that take away from them being the protector?
It's not so much to be emotional. It's to be emotionally expressive in a way where we have what's called emotional regulation, meaning we are expressing our emotions in a way that is socially acceptable. Right. So there's a big difference between, oh, I'm angry versus I'm angry. Right. Like both of them are conveying the exact same thing. Yeah. Right. But one is socially acceptable and actually promotes communication. Productive. The other one is not. OK, so that's what we have to teach men. And that's really what we have to teach everyone, because it's not like, women don't have this. OK, but what I can tell you, and this is the important thing, in the cycle, whenever it comes to anything cyclical in a romantic relationship, it is the man's job to break that cycle. It's the man's job because remember, he is the overall protector. Always. The man is always the protector of the family. But here's the thing. Women also have to make men feel safe. So if a man is making a woman feel safe, that woman in turn, if the man is going out of his way to do so, she then needs to make him feel safe.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And we see problems
when you say safe to like express his emotions.
So let's talk about, to express his emotions, to, I don't know, just be able to trust her, to be able to see her as a reliable person who is going to be consistently supportive. And by the way, I mean, that's really what we're looking for in a partner. We're looking for a partner. It's like, I'm going to make you, and this is where I think a lot of couples get into arguments. It's like, I want to make you feel secure, but you haven't made me feel secure first. And it's like, someone has to break that cycle, because a man is charged with being the protector. The man breaks the cycle, but it's not like the woman's off the hook when she's stable. It's then time for her to loop around.
When do you think that happens?
Huh?
When do you think that happens in a relationship? When the man...
What do you mean? When do men become protectors?
Yeah, when do men...
We're born with that.
Not protectors. When do they break that cycle, I guess you can say? Is it something that has to be initially in the relationship? Is something that comes later on?
Here's the thing. I mean,
because really, you're saying the men have to be the one who has that security.
Who has the security. Yeah.
But where does that come from also in them? Like, how do they know?
So I'll tell you this. Men are socialized to become soldiers. Okay. We are able to, it's weird that we are able to establish a security that is kind of superficial. Okay, meaning when you shut off all emotions, which guys are really good at doing based on how we're socialized, right? And case in point, anyone who's going to argue with me, okay, ask a man in your life, how old were you the first time someone told you to be a man? Ask any dude, I guarantee you his answer most likely is going to be between the ages of 8 to 12 years old. You ever meet an 8-year-old man before? No. So in essence, when we're telling a man to be a man, we're telling them shut off your feelings.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that's good about shutting off your feelings is that does create a false sense of safety. It does, because you're not really experiencing emotions. You're just being present in the moment. It's fine. But the problem is, and why we need those emotions, it's only through emotion can we build connection.
Also, the emotions are inevitable. They're there. It's just, are you expressing them or are you not?
Exactly.
So like men are experiencing emotions, but if they're not taught how to express them, it just comes out in different ways.
Well, actually, if men stop expressing emotions or they're not taught how to express it, they develop it's something that 75% of American men struggle with. It's called alexithymia. Alexithymia. Here's an interesting lesson for you. So let's look at the Latin roots here. So alexithymia, Alexithyma. I've spelled this a lot, so it flows from the tongue.
Yeah.
At the beginning of a word, Latin root means inability to. Lexi always has to do with words, right? Like dyslexia, or a fancy way to say vocabulary, lexicon, right? So thym, I don't know if you cook, but you know the herb thyme, right? So in ancient Rome, when a person would die, they would take a dried bundle of thyme, light the end on fire, and wave it over the deceased person's body. It was believed that that bundle, the smoke coming off that bundle, was the person's soul ascending to heaven. So the Latin root thym became associated with the soul. Like, for instance, prolonged depression that lasts for 2 years or longer is known as dysthymia, literally being despirited, desouled, right? So alexithymia is an inability to put our emotions into words. When you don't put your emotions into words, you suffer tremendously. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting, and this is what happens to men. We're given 2 different routes to get rid of our feelings, to vent our feelings. So if we're not going to do it verbally, which is obviously the most effective way of doing it, we either become aggressive. So statistically speaking, who commits more violent crime, men or women? Men. Who engages in more homicide, more fistfights? Men. Okay. And by the way, if you've ever seen a fist fight, let's think about this. How does a fist fight unfold? You have 2 people who are arguing with one another. One or both parties recognizes their words aren't landing, and hence blows start being exchanged. We saw this with Russia and Ukraine, right? You send diplomats, you try to work something out. No, words aren't being heard and bombs are falling. Okay. That's how it works. If a man is not taught how to express their feelings, how much more prone is a man to engaging in aggressive behaviors like that? Right. So that's one route that we go, which is kind of shitty. The other equally shitty one is the depressive route. Okay. Now, the depressive route, statistically speaking, who has higher levels of mental health issues? Men. Okay. More frequent mental health issues. Women, when they have mental health issues, tend to express them more severely. But in terms of numbers, in terms of quantity, who has more mental health issues tends to be men.
Really? Okay? Across the board?
Across the board. Who tends to have higher levels of addiction? Men. Who has higher levels of suicide? Men. Okay.
And you think that stems from the fact that they're not taught to?
Yeah, you can, because you have to understand. Our feelings are obviously. it's an integral part of our human existence.
What I wanted to ask you before, and this is
very interesting.
This goes back to our conversation about trauma and like always seeing the person's trauma.
Yeah.
Did you watch the interview of Mendy Pellin with the child molester?
No, of Mendy Pellin.
Mendy Pellin was interviewing a child molester.
No.
Okay, you didn't see it.
No, but that sounds intense.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So we both watched it. We were going to speak about it on the pod last week. We didn't end up doing it. Whatever. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it about. Totally. But if you didn't watch it,
even still, again, unfortunately, I've heard these kinds of stories many times. So yeah, please.
No, it just reminded me of that, of like the whole idea of trauma. But sometimes it's like, doesn't matter your trauma. What you're doing is disgusting and evil, and like you can't blame everything on your trauma. You know what I'm saying? The whole interview, he's kind of he acknowledges that what he did is wrong, but he's also kind of like giving himself excuses for why he did these things. I triggered like this. I wasn't cuddled enough as a kid. All these stuff, and it's like, yeah, we could feel empathy for these people, but like at a certain point, there's a line where you're like, you're responsible for your trauma. That's where I was.
You are responsible, and I could tell you this, like. The problem with trauma is, and again, therapists hear what I'm saying, okay? You could be the best therapist in the world, literally. You are never going to change the fact that what happened to that person happened to that person.
Right.
Okay? I don't care if you're doing tapping and you're doing EMDR and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're never fixing that person's trauma. So the best way of dealing with trauma, in my eyes, and I think all the methods kind of play to this in some way, shape, or form, is we look at where is that trauma coming up for the person presently. The problem with trauma is not that it happened. The problem with trauma is that it keeps on happening. Is that it's happening continuously.
Meaning it's created a pattern.
It's a pattern.
For this person
it's relived.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Okay. The issue is it's relived. And then you have a person. I was working with a guy who I adore this morning. And I mean, he had horrendous things happen to him as a child. And the thing is like, you know, we're talking about this, and then he's able to kind of say, well, now I also have to look at the fact that this has been going on for 30 years and I've allowed it to. So I said to him, okay, well, do we look at the 30 years or do we look at the rest of your life, the next 50 years of your life that you're going to work on it and you know, things are going to look up and everything is going to be better.
Right. Like there's almost like a de-emphasis on understanding where exactly it came from, or the comments that enabled this, how your parents treated you, as opposed to just really understanding it in your present life and how to move forward with it. I guess letting it go almost is the real.
So is what the main
work.
like type of therapy you use, like cognitive behavioral therapy?
Okay, so I do what's called highly integrative therapy, which means I take a schmattering of everyone. I am not a purist in the least, and I don't want to be, because I think, you know, problems should be approached from various different like sides.
Yeah.
I could tell you this, you know, I think more than anything, again, when it comes to trauma, the most important thing to establish with a traumatized person is safety. It's showing them like, this is the ultimate trauma story. You ready for the ultimate trauma story? Here we go. There was once a man who visited a circus. He went behind the scenes at Barnum and Bailey Circus, and he came across the elephants. And the elephants are these gigantic animals, you know, 15 feet tall, thousands of pounds. And they're being held back in place by a tiny little rope and a stake in the ground. Okay, clearly, if that elephant took one step forward, it would just run free. So this guy goes to the elephant trainer and says, well, how come the elephants aren't going wild? How come that rope is able to hold them back? And the elephant trainer explains that, you know, when these elephants were babies, that rope and that stake actually was capable of holding them back. The thing is that over time, the elephant never recognized that it grew. It never recognized that its situation had changed, its strength had changed. It never recognizes that, and hence it still is held back. That is PTSD. Like
learned helplessness.
Okay, it's a learned helplessness. And all you have to do is get a person to take one brave step.
Right.
That's really what it is. And it's hard. I'm not like, that's the problem with therapy. People don't realize how hard it is. We are not dealing, because I mean, and this is the same guy who I'm talking about. He's amazing. Probably one of my favorite patients. And you know, one of the things I do. Oh, I definitely do. I have a few patients who like literally, I think the world of them. There are other patients.
It's awesome how honest you are.
Yeah,
like I feel like most
exactly.
therapists.
I have some patients, and like you see their bravery in therapy, and it's just like, it's so moving.
Yeah.
It's so moving. You know, Dennis Prager actually said something that I really liked. He said, you know, some people have gaydar, some people have Judar. Dennis Prager is like, I have good person-dar. You know, and I think I do too. Like you see these people who present themselves so unbelievably vulnerably. And I work with some people who are my polar opposite. Okay. Like, could you envision me working with like a very reserved, very quiet, like gentle Christian woman in her 60s?
Totally.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like
makes so much sense.
Polar opposite. And yet I see this woman's humanity and I see how gentle she is. And you can't help but love this person. Like, it's the most amazing thing. And so, I mean, all I could tell you, and I mean, I think what really matters here is that we constantly go back to this fact that we have to pay attention to people's struggles. We have to pay attention to, you know, being able to take responsibility and accountability, but we also have to understand why people are the way they are. And just because you are the way you are, your trauma doesn't define you. You don't get to say, I'm myself because of my trauma. I remember there was a Holocaust survivor who came to speak at one of the Chabad houses I was in. And, you know, she was introduced as a Holocaust survivor. And she's like, I would appreciate if you wouldn't do that. She actually had become a therapist. She's like, it introduced me. She was like 90 million years old. But she's like, introduced me as like, you know, a great grandmother, introduced me as a therapist, introduced me as a person who like makes a difference in this world. The Holocaust, okay, yeah, it happened, but that's not my defining moment, you know? And I think the more that people kind of recognize that and they're brave enough to move past their trauma and recognize like, hopefully you're not in that danger anymore. You're not a baby elephant anymore being held back. You're grown up.
Yeah.
Okay. You're safe now. You have autonomy now. You can make decisions and deal with the consequences on your own. You don't have to turn to mommy and daddy or any other person who is trapping you or abusing you. It's like, you can do this on your own. And it's unbelievable that when people finally recognize this, it's like everything changes.
I love that mentality.
Like they built an internal safety almost to be able to trust themselves and making their decisions.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
I think like if you want to talk about like, especially parenting, when we have children, we owe children one thing and one thing only. We have to get them independent. Now, there are a variety of ways of doing this. Okay, you could take a kid, kick him in the deep end of the pool, figure out how to swim. Okay, sweet. The kid's going to drown 5 times, but eventually they'll figure it out. You also have other parents who are too afraid to even put their kid in the pool to begin with. And then you have parents who are like, hey, I'll swim the first lap with you, but after that, you're on your own. Okay? At the end of the day, we are all striving for independence. We're all trying to find a way how to make it in this world, and it's complicated. But I think our chances of surviving in that swimming pool increase drastically if we have another person by our sides. And whoever you want to align with, it could be a parent, but I also think we have our teachers, we have our friends. Like these people matter deeply because ultimately this is what we struggle with. It's like learning to trust our own decision making. I think is one of the biggest tasks of life. And if we're able to do that,
adulting.
But it's also so hard because
adulting.
I feel like it's so based off of how we were raised.
It is.
But yeah,
well, and
like
I mean,
you
that's
said,
the thing.
it's not.
Did your parents allow you to make choices?
Yeah.
And that's
But once you're older, it's too late to
It
fix
is.
that.
And you know something, it's just like right now, okay? I could tell you this. I don't spend that much time with my kids. I really don't. I kill myself. I work probably 50 to 60 hours a week. I did 45 hours of therapy alone. That's outside of office work and paperwork. Okay. Yeah. I killed this just the past week. But when I have my children and when I'm focused on my kids, they're the center. There's no cell phone. There's no distraction. And my kids are also very good at yelling at me for my cell phone if there's ever an exception to that. My wife, if I bring out a cell phone at the kitchen table, my wife gets very angry at me. Okay. Like I don't do that. So when I am present for my kids, I'm present. But
it's also treating them like autonomous individuals despite their youngness.
Exactly.
It's like making as if their decisions really matter because they do. And that their input matters as well. That what they're saying has like weight.
Children are meant to be seen and heard.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's what I feel like the generations are actually shifting to actually start. Like this is the real thing, I think, because everyone says, "Oh, it's so different nowadays." But like the parenting methods that I see now is more like you actually are giving like legitimacy to your kid as a individual.
Like when people would like brag, like, "Oh, when I was a kid, we would just get smacked if we did."
Yeah,
it's like, "Oh, that's good."
Shut
but wait a second. But let me also say this, okay? But there's also a limit to that also because we have
there's guidance you have to give.
We have parents who are crazy and they're saying, "Oh, I'll let my 3-year-old pick their gender." It's like. You're an idiot. Yeah. I'm sorry, but you're a moron. It's everything within limits. So this is why, and this is a really easy parenting tip is like you always give, and you've heard this. I pray to God you've heard this before and you don't even have kids. Okay. Like just you give options. You give choices, right? That's basically what it is. You could either do this or that or this or that. That's how we begin, right? And slowly but surely we gain confidence and we deal with the consequences of those choices. And people get better. So I can't say this enough. Like I really think being able to, on the one hand, listen to other people's feedback who we trust. On the other hand, actually act on those things that they advise and sit in the bed. Don't blame them, okay? But sit in the bed of your choice. And by the way, here's the other piece. If you are successful, don't forget about them either. So I could tell you this, okay? I don't know where we are with time.
I think we should start wrapping up.
This is a good wrap up.
This could be a wrap up. Yeah.
So I would say this, Moses was known as the most humble man in the world. How do you be the most humble? I'm the most humble. You've heard this vort before. Here's a dad joke. Does a Hasidic vort need to be removed by a Hasidic dermatologist? You see what I did there? Yeah, I'm a dad. Anyway, I am a dad. This is happening. Okay. So there's this vort though that says, okay, how do you be the most humble? So Moshe obviously realized that, the thing that made him great was nothing that he did himself. He recognized had anyone else on this planet been blessed with the experiences and gifts that I've been blessed with, they would be equally successful, if not more so. A lot of people forget that when they become successful. I could tell you I'm a great therapist. I could tell you I am a great therapist. It's true, but I'm a great therapist mainly because I have an amazing wife. I get a little choked up saying this because if it wasn't for her, I couldn't do what I do. Honestly, I have an amazing wife. I have incredible teachers.
Now I want to meet her.
Oh yeah, my wife. Everyone, it's always the same. They meet me and they're like, Charles, you're awesome. You are literally bullshit compared to your wife. Okay, like my wife is like next level. I can't. She's everything to me, and it's the same. I have such a strong support system. That is what allows me to do what I do. If you really, and I wish if you really wanted, if there was a great way to choose who's a great therapist, it's all about their support system. If there was a way to like post, okay, so I'm a therapist, here are the people supporting me and helping me so that I could fully attune to you.
Yeah.
That would be like the most amazing. Maybe that's a business plan. We got to figure this out. Maybe we develop this. Okay.
Little marketing strategy.
That's what makes me great. It has nothing to do with my own talents. It has to do with my teachers, the people who hold me accountable, my wife, my kids, my patients who teach me and they give me feedback because we have a close relationship. They don't just say blah, blah, blah. There is,
by the way, that's also humility.
It's humility, but
it's letting people.
I want their feedback.
Yeah. But
that's how I got
that's
good
humility.
At this.
Like knowing that you don't know everything.
It's weird to use me and humility in a sentence
I don't think humility is not having an ego though. Yeah, like I think humility is just understanding that you don't know everything.
And that's the thing. The fact that my patients are able to speak up and they say to me, Charles, this is working, this is not working. Yeah. This is something that you said that bothered me. This is but they're safe enough to say those things to me. That's what I care about. I had this client who said to me like, Charles, you said something to us. It really rubbed us the wrong way, but they cared enough. They could have easily canceled with me and been like, fuck you, I'm done. But they didn't. And I said to them, I'm honestly more than anything, very flattered by the feedback. And the reason why is like, they trusted me enough to know that if they give me that feedback, I'm not just going to like say, fuck you, not take accountability and be done. I'm going to take accountability. I'm going to take to heart what it is that they're going to say. I'm going to chew it over. I'm going to look at myself in the mirror, ask myself, like, how does this hold water, and move forward smarter and wiser.
And you're still going to love them.
Still love them. But that's so important. That's a real relationship right there of like, can you give that person that difficult feedback and still get love afterwards?
Yes.
That's what this is all about.
Maybe this is for like, we need to wrap, maybe this is for another time, but like, I can't wrap my hand. Maybe when you're a therapist, you just learn this to like truly care about someone that you literally know for such a short amount of time.
Well, but that's not being a therapist. That's being a chassid.
Okay. That's being able to recognize that every person in this world matters, Jew, non-Jew. I consider myself a shliach de goyim, to the nations. I literally, every single person in this world matters. When you walk down the street, and especially as a Jew, I have a yarmulke on my head. I have a beard on my face. Everyone knows, I hope, from a million miles away, I'm a Jew. So I'm representing the Jewish people. When people interact with me, if it's just a smile or something, anything, I want them coming away knowing this is a person who cares about me, who sees like that I belong here, that I see they see value. And that's the thing, like that's as Jews, what we're supposed to do. We have to see value in human beings. There's nothing more precious than life.
Save for being like a hippy dippy, but I relate to a lot of what you're saying about, I feel like there's just this universal love that I can have for anyone, despite me really even knowing who they are, because we're humans and we all have souls, and there's like a spark, right? Like the chelik elokah thing that really, really speaks to me. It's like it sounds, maybe if you don't relate to it, like it's just like a hippie thing.
No, I can tap into that for sure. I guess just like when you're dealing with like,
and I see you
have your wife and kids where you care about so deeply, and there's these people who you can't possibly care about them so much.
Just a different kind of
yes, I understand tapping into that. Like
it's just it's a matter of like, I remember hurting. I remember being in pain. I remember being so depressed. When I was really depressed, I remember like my heart pounding so loudly against my mattress, and it would keep me up all night. And I would think to myself, God, if my heart would just stop, I could finally rest. Yeah. Like that's the level of depression I was at. And other people experience that too. And I can't sit. I can't sit knowing that.
Okay.
If I can help another person, even just in a minute, it's just an interaction. I noticed you, I asked you, hey, how's your day? And actually mean it and actually be interested. That's what matters. And I think every human being is charged with that. Okay. Secret of life. Don't be a dickhead. Okay. Be a kind person, be a good person, help people. Because that,
I mean,
there's always two
because you're saying don't be a dickhead, just be a kind person, but you're actually saying something way more incredibly deep than be a kind person. You're saying
it's not a superficial,
tap into, exactly.
It's not a superficial kindness.
It's not a superficial.
It's be a genuine. That's what it is. It's be genuinely.
There's always two routes you can take.
Deeply know yourself so that you know your pain, and you can notice that everyone is the same.
Everyone's the same,
and then you love everyone.
Well, and that's the thing, and you gotta love people, man. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So. But thank you.
That is such a great ending.
Do you want to give us a little wrap before we
do a wrap?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll just do
Action.
some we'll do. It's almost like slam poetry. Okay.
Yeah.
So the stage is set, and yet the picture is incomplete. Perhaps there's more to the scene on the screen than what could be easily seen from my seats. So I cheat on the comfort of my chair with a pair of stable feet. Stand up, take a deep breath. I'm not scared, nor am I weak. Though as I begin walking through the rows, I notice the people all around me who have fallen to sleep, content with being locked in selfish dreams of only what they wish to see. Yet they end up missing the whole point of the scheme. But who am I to speak? My record is anything but clean. However, I know that if I should meet a golden calf along my path, I'd cut off my own 2 legs before I'd ever bend a knee. So I continue my journey forward to the front of the theater till an usher comes up to me and asks, why do you try to leave? And I'm like, look, doc, I'm not about to peace out of here. Relax. I just believe there's more to the show than what's being shown currently. He smiles like he knows something I don't and says, keep your conviction strong. The next few steps down are pretty steep. Though I don't know what he means. I smile politely, thank him for the advice, and proceed despite the slope increase, slowly until my heart skips, trips, and falls over a beat. The sight before my eyes beyond impossible to conceive. Alive, 6 million souls arise, yellow stars upon their sleeves. Tears begin to silently slide across my cheeks. Recognize that once upon a time and time again, my people were deemed unfit to breathe. But here we walk, proud and strong, proof that we never met defeat, proof that we will not let history repeat, proof that our promise has not become obsolete. The stage now within my reach, I ascend the steps and pull off a sheet, a pen and paper hidden beneath. I write, Shema Yisrael, have faith. Don't lose your faith. Behold, I've composed my masterpiece.
Wow.
So yeah,
that was
good
amazing.
Stuff, right?
Did you just write that?
No, this is like a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it's good stuff.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Good things, guys.
This was awesome.
So yeah,
I feel like we had such an amazing conversation.
Juicy. Absolutely juicy. Good things.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
All right. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
Follow us.
Thanks.
Bye. And plug your
Hard
thing.
Charlie. Everything is Hard Charlie. The rapper psychotherapist. So yeah, you could find me Instagram, TikTok. I'm not kidding. Someone once challenged me to do 30 videos in 30 days on TikTok. I got like 600 followers, whatever.
Yeah.
But I stopped doing it because I'm literally giving away gold. Like I'm giving away stuff I charge money for free. There's really good stuff on my TikTok. Also, I'm into collecting wild mushrooms. That's very weird. Yeah. So I have some of those mushrooms on there as well. I don't know if you're into that, but yeah, it's cool. So,
awesome.
But yeah, definitely check me out. You could also go to hardcharlie.com. You could go to Talk to Charlie, CHARLIE. So it's TALKTOCHARLIE.com or no, sorry, .net. Talktocharlie.net and be able to connect with me. My wife and I also just opened up our group psychotherapy practice. It's shalvapsychotherapy.com. So that is coming soon. But yeah.
All right.
Good things.
Thank you guys.